Morning, Rich.
Good morning, Doug.
I always think a good business is like, and Ben Blomley, your business partner, would love this more than anything, is like a Venn diagram with all of the skills that you bring hacked together in a Venn diagram, and the little bit in the middle is your core speciality. This concept was very interesting last night, so not sure to what extent we need to cover this on the pod, but Lindsay wants to have a conversation with one of the teachers at Noah's school. Let's just leave it at that. And let's just say she spent an hour compiling notes on this conversation last night.
Oh man, that teacher's going to get absolutely ruined. Okay.
He's in trouble, but Lindsay brings a Venn diagram of absolute terror to this conversation. And it's a Venn diagram. I think it would be very hard to get someone with these three specific skills. It's well under 0.1% of the population. So we are talking about high motivation to sort out this problem. Fine. Lots of parents fall into high motivation. Number two, high functioning IQ, like very high IQ, top probably 5%. Okay, that's not ideal for the teacher. He's in a bit of trouble dealing with those two things. But again, that is not that unusual. The third little circle is where it goes very dark very quickly. She's a trained barrister, so she is trained to create layer questions in a way to trap and induce emotions of shame. So you've got motivation, intelligence, training. And I said to her, look, just a primary school teacher. I'm not sure you can go in this hot. She is adamant she's going in hot.
And why is she... Can we go into why she feels she needs to do this? Just out of curiosity, a little bit backstory. Just throw me a bone.
It's just to do with like groupings and settings. I mean, it's fairly benign.
Group what, like so and so is going to belong to the bees and so is going to belong to the rabbits?
Yeah. Like a lower set than is desired.
Okay.
The biggest wealth transfer in history is about to happen from the boomers to the millennials. By 2030, millennials are going to be 5 times wealthier because all their parents are going to leave them all their money. So, what that means, in my view, is a ton of business opportunity. I've got 3 ideas for you. I want you to tell me what you think.
Okay, boom. Let's go for it.
Number 1, financial advisory firm for Gen Z and millennials, which is on your phone, on chat. It's not going to on a Zoom call or going to some office somewhere in London to speak to a financial advisor. It's there where you can just go, cool, and it's not affiliated at all to any product. It is totally independent, and it is just experts giving you advice. It's like, cool, my parents have left me this house. It's £400,000, and I've got this £100,000 cash sum. How can I think about where to invest this? And it is set up to help people think about those investment decisions. It looks at risk, and it looks at long term. What sort of term you're looking at. And the reason I think that's good is because I just think the market is an absolute joke. The problem with it is, and I've looked into it and been into it myself a little bit, the incentives are as fucked as they could ever be. A lot of financial advisors just take essentially a percentage of your return. So it sounds little. So you've got 100 grand, you invest it, you get 6% return on the market, and they take 1 or 1.5%. Doesn't sound a lot, but of your return, that's like a quarter. And over the time, that multiplies. If you've got that compound, so if you've got a chunk of cash invested, they are creaming that, and they're not really doing much. All they're doing is just shoving it in a fund, which is, in reality, they're all pretty similar. There's these kind of all share funds, but there's a ton of like nuances around tax, and there's a tons of nuances around, the type of fund. There's different like wrappers you can use. It's not super straightforward, and there's also different platforms. So whilst it is not rocket science, I think somebody just to take your hand and guide you through that. In chat, you pay 50 quid a month to be part of it, and you can ask them questions at any time. I think is the way to do it.
So my dad was an independent financial advisor for 10 years. You know, as you said, just creaming people off this 1% fee. He actually didn't do quite what you're describing. Look, I think it's interesting. What do I think about it?
While you're thinking about it, should I go on to number 2?
This is... No.
Stay with me on this
for a sec. So, yeah, I'm good. I absolutely agree with you that there's certain industries that have a way of working that are very staid and old school in the way that they communicate with people. I think there's definitely an opportunity, like we've seen with some accountants, to shift their processes of communication and how they actually function to be more appropriate for that generation coming through. I would argue that IFAs are probably one of those. I think there's one area which could be really interesting, which is probate. I don't know whether probate's in number 2 or number 3. I remember talking to a very bright woman from Newcastle about 2 years ago who wanted to shake up how probate was done, because probate's a mess, and that's the nuts and bolts of actually inheriting a house or something like that. So I think probate could be, if you haven't got probate in 2 or 3, that's the one we could look at. But I agree with you, IFAs in a certain branded but also cultural shift could be quite interesting. I believe you could make probably quite a handy business out of that.
Yeah, and I think it's just talking to that generation the way they want to be spoken to. Because I spoke to my financial advisor, so I found actually quite a good one. I think they're based in the Midlands somewhere, and they just charge you a fee to give you advice. They've not got any commissions, no affiliations, anything like that, and it works really, really well. And I was like, cool, who are your clients? He was like, oh, you're like one of our youngest clients. I'm, by quite a distance, and I'm 40.
Is that an issue though? That I do wonder whether, are there any young IFAs coming through?
There's definitely young financial advisors, but young people generally don't use that service.
Where did they go? Because they haven't needed to?
They generally don't have much. They don't really have much money to invest. They're either in a pension scheme or in something basic. But we're in a world now where they're going to take on huge wealth.
They're going to inherit. Yeah, like your regular. Like a 4-bedroom house where my parents live is over £1 million now. When we moved in the 90s, it was 70 grand. It's just exploded because it's Brighton. It's just gone nuts. So yeah, you're going to be in a situation. Oh, you're right. In 10 years' time, probably.
Yeah. So it's just starting, and it's gonna accelerate. Which brings me on to point 2. So the other thing that these IFA firms need to do, they need to market themselves properly to a younger demographic. So there's a huge opportunity here for agencies, and I think all sorts of agencies can do a good job here. But like SEO and content, social media, influencer marketing, and everything should be around, cool, how do we attract millennials, Gen Zs, because these agencies, if you look at any ad from an IFA, it is aimed at older people. It's fucking boring. So I think it's a big market just to kind of create brand, and if you're an agency and you know how you work this out, it's a great niche.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a shift in some industry, then there's obviously another way to empower that, and that is, IFAs aren't going to be brand experts, they're going to be IFAs. So you need the agencies around them, the marketers around them, to be able to shape personal brand, shape company brand. Comms makes sense.
It's quite an easy sell, I think, for an agency as well. You're just like, look, you have to go and get a couple of case studies from IFAs, and we are at the beginning of a trend, so there's not that many young people thinking about it, but you've got to be, look, you want to be ahead of the game, this is how you can do it, this is how we can help you. And I think a lot of IFAs, like, there are young people in that sector, so they get it, they're selling to their peers, but you just need a really clear playbook. Number 3, so this is really just back to, this is a type of agency, and this is back to the kind of Kalian world. So the third one is a content site. There's a ton of these already, fine, but there are just endless terms for you to go after, and the content that people create isn't amazing. Like when I was looking at products myself, it's very generic. You know, these guys do this and these guys do this. There's not very good quality. Cool, this is us logging into this platform and this is how it works and this is why these guys are good and this is the type of product you can buy. Really good quality content. Can I give you some key terms, Rich, that you could go after that have got low competition? You've got property fund. Fancy invest in one of those? We've got AJ Bell review. AJ Bell is just like a kind of a platform. Pretty low competition for that. Very good, AJ Bell. I use them myself. Best performing pension fund.
Sorry, point 4.
And it's just not that high competition. So there is. I'm not saying it's easy to rank for that stuff, but if you're like, look, I'm going to build a content site today, and you invest in that over the next 2 to 5 years, and you specifically aim at millennials, Gen Z coming into wealth. And you target it at that market, you are going to have more traffic than you know what to do with if you do that well in 5 years. And then you can kind of monetize it however you want. You can, you know, stand up a financial advice firm off the bat. You might be able to do affiliates. You can sell products. There's so much you can do. So content's a good play, always long term. Agency I like,
okay.
And actually setting up the financial advisory firms, obviously the hardest of all of those, and attracting it to sort of millennials and Gen Z, but also viable. If your life depended on it, where'd you go?
Yeah, I mean, the thread of the pod is that there's an industry or a sector of an industry that's ripe for disruption, right, or is going to change, or may have to change its habits, right, the way it operates. And I think there's a load of support functions around that. You know, like you said, the agencies to do the SEO, the branding, influencer marketing, all of that. The content agencies like Caleb to do the search traffic. I don't think IFAs are going to be the only one. I think that change in that shift that we're going to go through in the next 10 or 15 years, there's going to be other things that are coming off it as, you know, our generation begins to grow up and kind of gets into that kind of age. Yeah. So if you're an IFA, reach out to Doug. He's going to change your life, I think is the point of it.
Thanks, Rich.
That was a compliment. Yeah, thanks, Rich. Okay, well, thank you very much, Doug. If you like this episode, or if you're an IFA and you want to reach out and chat and have a conversation about how Doug could help you do that, please do. Otherwise, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Nice.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay.